So in this video, I'm going to show you how a couple in their early 40s can make an additional $1.2 million plus in their Kiwisaver by the time they go to retire. And this is without doing anything special like taking on more risk or increasing contributions. It's not too good to be true. It's just basic maths and having access to the right information and tools. Although I've based the number and the title of this video on a couple who are 40, this concept works whatever your age, as long as you're still earning and are not retiring in the next few years. So here's the problem with why you may be missing out on some big money by the time you hit retirement. Many people I come across have a Kiwisaver fund with ABC provider, and they've chosen maybe 1, 2, 3 fund with that provider, and they think they're set up for retirement. When I ask them why they chose that provider and fund, they usually say because they have low fees, or they like their ethics and philosophy, or they seem to be doing well, so we went with them. Some even just went with their bank because it was convenient. But when I ask them whether they've checked the risk versus return performance of their fund, they say, I don't know what that is. If you don't know what risk versus return performance is, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. Since 2011, I've helped countless people just like you achieve a holistic plan that sets them up for a secure and comfortable retirement. And it may only be 1 in 100 I first meet that are aware of this key concept and how it can change your results dramatically. And the real problem behind this is that most have simply not had access to this information before, because this performance measure is only available through select advisors who chase this information from Kiwisaver fund providers. So let me ask you one more question. How important to you is the comfort of your future self? Because in this example, an extra $1.2 million plus to retire on equates to an extra $5,260 per month of extra spending money beyond the age of 65. We're not talking small change. So let's dive in and learn. If you take action, this part of the video could be the highest return on your time investment that you may ever make. You see, Kiwisaver providers usually market their funds around their strengths, not their weaknesses. And their strengths could be one of the popular topics like high returns, low fees, good ethical or responsible investment strategies, or just convenience. Let's put aside most of the popular topics for now and put our attention towards how to truly compare returns. Firstly, let's reverse our thinking and do a U-turn for a second to understand risk management and performance. Risk management describes the techniques a Kiwisaver fund provider applies to mitigate the risk and volatility of the fund. These strategies influence how much your savings may go down when big market events such as the global financial crisis or COVID-19 came around. We call the percentage of fund has gone down a drawdown. So if you have $100,000 in your Kiwisaver at this point and it falls to $82,000 at this point, we'd call this an 18% drawdown. Higher volatility means bigger drawdowns for your Kiwisaver, particularly when market cycles naturally go through bigger recessionary phases every few years. Some growth fund drawdowns were 30% plus when COVID-19 hit, while the ones with good risk management achieved less than 20%. In my opinion, for most people, the Kiwisaver providers who don't have sound risk management strategies are simply the ones to avoid, because the volatility can cause extra stress that can easily influence people into making irrational decisions with their savings. Decisions that can lose them a lot of money. And the more savings they have, the more irrational the decisions can be because of the emotional ties to their money. Unfortunately, it's just human nature, and this is how markets work. The good news is that you can simply put your hard-earned Kiwisaver savings with a safer option and get the same, if not better, returns. Those providers who have good risk management when markets are going down usually have excellent management for milking the gains when markets are going up in the following growth expansion phase. And this leads to returns being far better even though the risk has been mitigated and limited. instead of returns being only okay with open-ended risk and volatility and drawdowns. Comparing returns with different funds without comparing the risk and volatility with those funds is like driving without your seatbelt. It's just an unnecessary risk to take. Focusing on returns without understanding risk is why so many jumped from growth to conservative funds when the COVID-19 drawdown hit. And this unfortunately solidified their losses and simply depleted their savings for retirement. With a little bit of prior planning and guidance, it could have been very different for these people. So how can you make sure you don't get caught out with the next big market event? By prioritizing risk performance now. You need to compare apples versus apples with the risk of the fund, not just apples versus apples for the returns of the fund. You see, I use this approach for my family and I, my friends, and for my clients, and I have done for a very long time. And it's not new. It's a globally recognized, proven investment concept that the professionals have used since day one. If you have Kiwisaver and you haven't used the risk versus return performance chart before, then that's great news. It means there's a huge opportunity for growth for you in your financial future, starting from right now. Saving an extra 1.2 million plus for the household over 25 years is like earning an extra $50,000 a year or more without having to go to work and make that money. So let me show you how this works, and then you'll see how logically this makes complete sense. Now, this chart shows the last 10 years of risk versus return performance for various Kiwisaver providers and their different funds. The fund providers are being blanked out as these metrics are updated every 3 months, and I don't want people running out and changing their funds based on what could be old data by the time they watch this video. The different colors represent the different risk allocations. On the right, we have growth funds, which have more exposure to volatile markets like share markets, so they have a bigger volatility with a bigger return potential. Then we have balanced funds that have less exposure than growth funds to more volatile markets. And then we have moderate funds with less exposure again. And finally, conservative funds, which have the least exposure to more volatile markets. And with that, they have lower volatility with smaller returns. Like I mentioned before, most Kiwisaver customers haven't been shown this concept. So most naturally believe that all growth, balanced or conservative funds are the same across all of the different providers and they have the same risk return profile. But this is far from the truth, as you can see by the differing performances. When assessing for risk versus return, ultimately we want a combination of a left and high fund, whether we're in a growth, balanced, moderate or conservative fund. Left and high indicates a Kiwisaver fund and provider that's performed really well over a very long period of time. Or we can choose a mix of allocations with specialist Kiwisaver providers if you're trying to really tailor your drawdown risk better than the default growth, balanced, conservative fund options allow. You'll also notice the further right you go towards the growth funds, the bigger the spread is of the results between these providers. And this indicates that the more exposed you are to volatile markets like share markets, the broader the range of results are likely to be across the different Kiwisaver providers. So if you fit a balanced or growth risk profile, you need to be ultra aware of the risk versus return performance when you go to choose a fund, because the consequences of choosing the wrong fund can stack up to be a lot of money over time. And here's the thing, when you start to understand risk management and performance, you then start to think, well, hey, if I'm in a growth fund like this one here with ABC provider, and the risk is the same as this one up here with XYZ provider, then I'm actually sacrificing what I could be making in returns with XYZ. And then you start thinking, well, over time, how much does 3% in annual compounding returns actually add up to? And how much will that difference compound to over, say, 25 years? An average performing fund earning 3% less every year could be depleting your future pocket to the tune of hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on your age. So let's jump over to a calculator to work it out. Let's imagine we have a couple who are both 40 years old, and they each have 75,000 saved in Kiwisaver so far, and they're each earning $100,000 a year, saving 3% of their salary into Kiwisaver, and with their employer contributing 3% as well. For example purposes, let's imagine their incomes didn't increase with inflation and nothing else changed. Their projected balances for Kiwisaver by age 65 total just under $1.6 million. But if we apply an increased average return of 3%, like we saw for a better performing fund, the projected balances total over $2,850,000, and the difference being over $1,260,000 extra for their retirement, without increasing risk or contributions. Now, let's imagine they're both 50 instead of 40 and still suit a growth fund, taking into account their risk preference and all of their other financial plan considerations. We start with a projection by 65 of $940,000 and get over $1,330,000 by applying the increased return average. The difference is over $390,000 extra for their retirement. Now, the numbers aren't as attractive as when you're 40 because you have less time in the market, but it's still certainly better than what could have been. And what about if you're in your 30s or even 20s? Well, this is really where the magic can happen. Average performing projections of 7% annually show to be around $2,430,000 by age 65. And if we apply the 10% return, we get close to $5,530,000 by age 65. The difference being over $3,090,000 extra for their retirement. And lastly, if you're lucky enough to catch on to this concept when you're in your 20s, the difference could be over $4.8 million extra to retire on. So whatever your age bracket, it's about minimizing risk and maximizing returns and time in the market that can make all the difference to your retirement nest egg. If you did increase your contributions from 3 to 6%, we're looking at a very different picture indeed for your nest egg savings. So by now you're probably thinking, well, this sounds great, but how do I actually get this sorted? Well, at this point, you have two choices. Option one, you can try to do this yourself. But the problem is that it takes a long time to build a solid understanding of how Kiwisaver funds operate. And then it takes more time and resources to keep on top of the research. And then you need the ability to make changes as the market changes. And that's without considering the most important part of this, which is how your Kiwisaver should be structured around your actual plan for retirement, which is a process that establishes how much you should be putting into your Kiwisaver versus paying down debt or saving into other investments. Most people simply don't have the opportunity to do this themselves and stay on top of this effectively. Which brings me to option two. We can do everything for you and act as your guide and advisor. Our holistic financial service isn't just about helping you with Kiwisaver as well. It takes into account your whole financial world, and if appropriate, we can set up and manage other investments outside of Kiwisaver. And this will help you get the diversification and flexibility you may need. Getting your risk allocations and structures correct is also an important part of this process. If it suits, we can do a full analysis on property investments, if you have them already or wanting to invest in this area. We can model how property can look for you and your budget now and your income later on when you go to retire, and what you'd like to do with these assets at different stages in time. We can check how your mortgage structures fit in with your overall plan, along with modeling plans and projects for your home or investment property over time. And if you're renting, we can understand when you'll be able to buy a home and get into the market. We also check the different income expectations you may have for the future and how they're likely to change the levels of your retirement savings down the track. We get your expenses and budgets right and model expected changes to your budgets over time as your life stages change. And lastly, we can check over the impact to your financial world in an event that an earner in your household cannot work due to a health issue or an injury, or if they pass away. And this makes life and income protection insurance planning very straightforward and removes the guesswork for how much insurance you need, so we can avoid over or under insurance. And that's what I mean by a holistic service. We don't just broker products. Your whole financial world and the products that you use to make up your retirement plan are all consolidated into the one retirement plan outlook. In this way, we're able to help you ensure it's all done correctly, so there's no problems getting you to where you want to go. This approach is what gives you true financial certainty. We've helped countless people just like you achieve the retirement plan they deserve since 2011, and we have the tools, resources, knowledge and experience to guide you every step of the way. I'll work closely with you to develop a personalised retirement plan that takes into account your unique circumstances and goals. And I'll provide ongoing support and advice to ensure you stay on the right track. By working with us, you'll not only save time and avoid the headaches of trying to figure this out on your own, but you'll also have the peace of mind of knowing that you're making the most of your savings and getting the professional help you need to set yourself up for a secure future. And best of all, we do all of this without any direct fees, as we're compensated through the brokerage of your funds or insurance policies. And this ensures you receive expert guidance without having to find the money each month for the experienced retirement planning and ongoing advice. There's also numerous other strategies I've picked up along the way that'll help you make a lot more and save a lot too. What I've shown you today is just the tip of the iceberg. So what are the next steps if you'd like to learn more? All you need to do is click the button below this video to schedule a call. On the call, I'll establish where you're at now and help you work through where you want to go so you can create the future you want. I'll work you through the right strategies for you so you can put financial uncertainty behind you and live a secure, comfortable future.